guys ready? Yeah. Okay, it's February 13th, and we will go ahead and call this meeting to order with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would like to welcome all our guests this evening. We have a packed house, which is great to see. So thank you for being here. ¿Hay alguna necesidad para traducción al español? Okay, thank you for being here. Moving on to item A3, approval of this evening's agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Motion been made by Director Simmons to approve this evening's agenda.
Second.
Second by Director Mike Garza. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item B1, citizens request to speak, and I don't have any. So great. Moving on to item B2. And so for this portion of the board meeting, I would like to have all our board members join me in the front, including our student reps and our superintendent. Test. Okay. So it is obviously a practice that we've begun for the last at least 2 years to acknowledge and recognize teachers who have been with a district for a number of years, and so it's an honor for me to be able to recognize this first individual. Jan Charleston has been with the Othello School District. Yeah, let's give her a hand. Jan has been with the Othello School District since 1977 and has dedicated 40 years of service to the Othello community as a substitute teacher. And I can personally say, when I was in school, I remember this lovely woman. And so it's an honor for me to be able to present to you, Jan, this plaque recognizing you for the 40 years that you've been with this district. And so thank you very much. I want you to come forward, please. I'd like to present you this certificate, 40 years of dedicated service. Thank you so much. We want her to share just 30 seconds.
Wow. Everybody wonders, how did you do this? 40 years. But I tell you the truth, I really have enjoyed my experience in this school district. When I first came here, Warden would call me and Connell would call me, and I always said, no, I like Othello. So it's really been, all the teachers that I have worked for have been wonderful. And so it's been a real pleasure to work with every one of them, and most of them are here. Thank you so much.
We're going to go ahead and take a picture now. So if you want to, we need to come in close, please. Next, we'd like to recognize another outstanding staff member and teacher. We are excited to announce that Othello School District has was joined with several other districts in Washington that are now part of recognizing and honoring one teacher with the Crystal Apple Award. The Crystal Apple Award was initiated in 1999 by Dr. John Umbarger. The program was established to honor the education profession as a whole by identifying a few of the many individuals who have positive impact on the lives and futures of their students. The criteria for this award is this: the nominee's primary focus is the student, enthusiasm and versatility in dealing with the individual needs of students, and the ability to reach students in ways that contribute to their increased knowledge, talents, and self-esteem. Creative use of resources and curriculum. Special attention is given to preparation and development of a constructive learning environment. Outstanding peer relationships, is a team builder. The ability to develop parental support and respect. The ability to inspire students to appreciate and seek learning in order to attain their maximum potential in life. And thorough knowledge of subject matter. It is our honor as a school board to honor a Scootney Springs Elementary School teacher who has been with the district for approximately 6 years. And the award is going to be given to JC Martinez. JC, could you come?
Can I tell you all that in second grade, I had a teacher who went out on long-term for medical reasons, and my substitute teacher was Jan Charleston. And I remember being in her classroom, and I loved when she was there. And no discredit to my teacher at the time, but when she left, we were very sad. She made us feel good in our classroom and was a light. And that's all I ever hope to be in my classroom for my students. But as I look in this room at each and every face, I know pretty much almost all of you. In some way, you've all touched my life. And I hope to just do that for my students. And I want to say thank you, because you were either my teachers or my secretaries, or you checked me in at lunch, or you taught me something, or I learned something from you in some way. Thank you.
Let's give her a hand. We'll go ahead and take a photo now. Thanks again, JC. Congratulations. And last but not least, the Othello Chamber of Commerce chooses Teachers of the Year every year. And we're excited to announce that 3 of our many amazing teachers in this district have been recognized by the Othello Chamber as the Teacher of the Year. And as we know, Chamber recognizes teachers annually, and this is their criteria. It's excellence in education, quality instruction, creating positive learning environments, commitment to improving student learning, and knowledge of subject matter. And so this evening, it's my privilege to announce that with us for 4 years at the Othello School District and working at Scootney Springs Elementary is Brenda Young. Brenda, would you come?
Well, I wasn't planning on speaking. I was saving it for a few weeks, but I just love what I do. I love my job. I love the kids I work with every day. I love the people I get to work with every day. I love that I get nominated with one of my good friends who works with me. And it's just an honor to receive this award and work with all the awesome kids in this town.
Thank you once again. We'll take a picture now. Thanks again. Thank you. Our next recipient for the Teacher of the Year award is also a Scootney Springs Elementary school teacher, and she's been with the district for 12 years. Sandra Garza, please come.
Oh, goodness. I am very blessed to work in a great school district and work with many great teachers and community and parents. And I definitely, I want to talk about Jan also, because she's an amazing person, and we are definitely going to miss you. And so I'm very honored to receive this award. Thank you.
Thanks again, Sandra. And our last award recipient is a teacher who's been with the Othello School District and teaching at the high school now for approximately 8 years. Jennifer McCordy, would you please come?
Hello. Thank you all for the support and encouragement. There are so many teachers that deserve this award, and I am just so honored. Jan, I love you. She's also sub for me. She's a great person, good friend. I also have 2 of my leadership kids that are standing up here, and I have amazing kids this year. So thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to item B3. I will have Gretchen, if you could come forward, please, and she is going to recognize our new national board teacher. Mike is right there. That's fine.
I think what I'll do, since we just did all the recognition, I was going to do it after the presentation, but I didn't realize that all this was going on. But I wanted to recognize our newly certified national board teachers. And we only had 1 this year, but don't despair. That's not a bad thing. We're going through the new process. And so the new process will be able to hopefully certify some new teachers in November. So technically there's kind of going to be a little bit of a gap. So our newly national board certified teacher is Kim Bailey.
Yay.
No, she had said she was going to come. So that's it for the, I'll just go through the PowerPoint and I have some things for you guys. Okay, I'd just like to keep you updated because the process has been changing over the past few years and there's a few important changes. So National Board Certification, in case you don't know what it is. Let's see, how do we just click on this? Do I have to play it? Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you. So the Washington State has a great partnership with a lot of different groups. And of course, the Washington Education Association has a lot of support for candidates. And once you're certified, they have leadership opportunities. OSPI is partnered with WEA to offer a lot of those leadership opportunities, and CSTEP, which is basically the Center for Strengthening Teacher Profession, and they have a lot of leadership opportunities once they are certified. teachers, and of course the national boards. Oh, thanks. So we have 8,614 national board certified teachers in the state of Washington. That's 16%. We have the highest number of candidates right now going through the new process. And in our school district, we have quite a few. WEA has Jumpstart and Homestretch, which are support for candidates going through the process. There's leadership opportunities, there's facilitator training, and currently the Othello School District has 3 facilitators. Actually, there's 4 facilitators that are trained, but we have 3 that are currently facilitating. There's also leadership through the C-STEP. The state incentives, of course, that's very nice for teachers once they become certified. The school district is a challenging district in every single one of our schools, so we do get the full bonus. And the first year's bonus is prorated at 60%. It is pensionable, which is nice. In order to help candidates, there's a conditional loan, which basically helps pay for the process, and then it's taken out of their first bonus in order to pay that back. The mission of the National Board standards is to maintain high and rigorous standards. They certify teachers who meet those standards, and they support the efforts for accomplished teachers and lead their profession. It is a process that is by teachers for teachers. The leadership and the camaraderie once you are certified, and especially throughout our state, is amazing. The purpose of national boards, it positively impacts your student learning, and it is by far the most pointed professional development that you can do for your students, because it's your classroom and your students for you. The architecture, that's okay. Oh, well, I would like to point out at the bottom, it says, research does show, and in the back of your packet, there are 2 pages of the research for you, but it shows that certified teachers gain 1 to 2 months of learning in their test scores, with the impact being greater for low income and minority students. So basically that means that if you have a student with a certified teacher, that you're going to make greater gains in that classroom than with a non-certified one. This is just the basic architecture of accomplished teaching. They base their entire standards around this. And it's basically the cycle of teaching. And teachers kind of look at some of this stuff, and at first they're really nervous about it because it is a lot of work. But then they start looking into it and realize they do this stuff. It's just making sure that you are very intentional at each and every point. They did try, once they have changed the system, they tried to remove barriers. So time and money and support, they've made it actually less expensive. You can do them in different orders. And it's not just one more thing, they've actually connected it to our TPAP. So component 4 is actually very, very closely related to TPAP and student growth. So the flexibility, there's 4 components. They can start with any components, and they can complete it in 1, 2, or 3 years, which isn't really all that different from what it used to be, just because I remember when I went through, and Denise was very good about reminding me that it was a 3-year process. And if you were lucky enough to do it in 1 year, that's fabulous. But if you can't, years. So there's 4 components now. The first one is the content knowledge, which is, it's a test, and you go and you take it at the assessment center. Most of them are about 2.5 hours. There's 45 multiple choice questions and 3 essay questions. Number 2 is a paper, and they look at student work and they look at growth over time. Component number 3 is a video. Actually, it's 2 videos with 2 papers. That's a lot of work. And component 4 is the effective and reflective practitioner, where it's a paper and it has a lot of forms and there's student growth and data involved with that one. So it looks a lot like TPAB. We always tell teachers that they need to know their Washington State teaching certificate so that they don't get caught in the middle where they are trying to get their national board certificate, but they need to be certified in a certain amount of time. So we have them, we direct them to OSPI all the time. So maintenance of certification, once you're certified, of course, in the old way, it was 10 years. Every 10 years, you would recertify. Basically, what they've done is they've split it apart. And instead of every 10 years, now you're going to go through a maintenance of certification every 5 years. So they split it in half. They made it cheaper. They made it less work, and every 5 years. And our local support, we have 3 trained facilitators that are working in cohorts right now. And in the Othello School District, currently we have 13 candidates, although it started out in the fall with about 24. And then approximately 5 or more candidates renewing. Since we don't really have a cohort for that, we don't really know unless they just let us know. And then we have 4 cohorts who meet monthly. We have 3 OSPI trained facilitators that are working. We have 24 certified teachers, and we have the 1 newly certified teacher. Do you have any questions? I know that was kind of a lot in a short amount of time.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. Great presentation. Thank you. Before we move on to item B4, I just wanted to let all you know, you're more than welcome to stay. I know many of you came to support your recognized teachers, but feel free to go at any time if you'd like to. Thank you. I need to put that away. We'll take a 3-minute recess. Hi. Just for 3 minutes.
Tomorrow is elimination, so which of you gentlemen is contact for COVID symptoms? One or the other.
Well, it'd probably be the superintendent, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're about ready to come back in, so.
If it doesn't pass, it's
Exactly. Okay. Moving on now to item B4. We have a presentation of a committee. And so if you could please come forward. Thank you.
I think it's maybe a little much to call it a presentation, but Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Hurst and staff, and the student reps. We appreciate the opportunity that we had to comment and give you some feedback about the capital levy. The committee met a couple of times, or 3 times, to discuss what was proposed to us to evaluate whether or not the proposal for a capital levy for athletic facilities was something we felt was needed. We came to the conclusion that yes, we believe it is something that's needed. We may have taken it a little bit further than what you had anticipated us, because we looked beyond just athletic complex and looked on to possibly some other facilities that could be incorporated with early action items. We think on the development of a master plan, if you will. The things that we looked at was not just your typical athletic facilities, but auditorium, gymnasium, school lockers, concessions, the infrastructure necessary for all of those things to happen at a school program. I think one thing that did come out of it, though, as I mentioned earlier, was the master plan, that there needs to be a vision for how we're going to develop all of the facilities that are associated with a new school, and they have to be they have to recognize the fact that it's likely that sometime down the road you're going to need to do expansion, and that master plan needs to evaluate that and make those considerations as you move forward with whatever the development is. The second question that was posed to us was to establish a priority based on the needs, if we thought that the needs were there for a capital levy. And unfortunately, you'll probably see that we did not rank them in any one way. We believe that they're all needs that need to be addressed as you move forward with the development of a school. We understand that this is fairly early in the proceedings for this. That likely the costs will dictate a lot of the development, and we think that the capital levy needs to maybe be considered at a higher level than what was proposed to us, or in the example that we were given of basically $2.5 million per year for 2 years or 3 years. That may be the right number, but we also think that with the amount of facilities that need to be constructed for a new school, that a higher capital levy limit may be something you want to consider for either a higher per year charge or a longer period. I think we all recognize that the value of a capital levy, that we avoid any kind of loss of input funds through paying for any kind of interest, as we will in a bond. So there's an attraction to get as much work done with the money that you can get generated through a capital levy as opposed to a bond. We have some other notes there. I'm not going to rehash all those. We do think that this is just the first step in this process as far as the committee members are concerned. Most of us would like to be considered to be included in future decisions that are made about how facilities are going to be created, and we open up for any questions that I might be able to answer. And please note, I speak probably mostly for myself based on what we did here. We had a fairly good consensus on everything that we talked about. So I think I don't think I'd probably ruffle too many feathers with the rest of the committee members, but this is a brief overview of what we looked at.
Questions from the board?
I have a question, Craig. So first of all, thank you you and the committee for the work you did on that. One of the big questions I have was there any discussion in that committee? I know it wasn't asked of you, but about the timing of the potential capital projects levy. Any discussions at all, or was it just focused on what it would, if it was something we should do?
I don't think you mean is when we should go to yeah, not so much
discussion about that.
Not so much. We talked about the length of it. You know, is 2-3 years? I mean, what's the proper time to extend that for the amount of funds that you're looking for? Knowing that I think our focus was more on the idea that with ball fields and whatnot, you can do incremental construction where you may not be able to do that. Yeah, you wouldn't do that with a bond necessarily. You get the big chunk of money up front and you start building. But so no, not not when we should go out to the public if there is a capital levy thrown towards. We didn't discuss that, Ralph. And by the way, I apologize. I'm Craig Simpson, one of the committee members.
Nice to meet you.
Now it changes everything, right?
The other thing is just a comment. The request. I'd love the request to be able to stay involved. We want to hear that, I think. But just so that you are aware, and maybe the other committees members are or not, but right now the facility committee meetings that will be happening that Dr. Hurst is putting together will go into research and design. And I think that's exactly what is being asked, to be involved in that process. So there is an opportunity through that process for the bond. Whether there's a levy or not, there will definitely be an opportunity for the bond research and design.
Thanks, Ralph.
So that's a committee that's run by the district itself, not by the school board. But
That you talked about a master plan, which is something that we do need to develop, not only for the athletic part of this, but for the school part of it too, because we need to make sure that we allow, if we need any expansion in the future for the school, for students, and or for athletic. That's something that we will need to look at developing, is some type of master plan and allowing for future.
And I think we reined ourselves back a little bit about talking about the school itself, other than we did throw in gymnasium and auditorium, thinking that those may be able to be standalone type structures that could be incorporated into a school. But that was part of the discussion too, Mr. Jones, that we talked about that ability that if you have a school, make it so if you have to expand, that it's already thought about how you're going to do that in the future, and try to make that part of the overall plan. But that wasn't really our focus, so we didn't go into it that much. But that we did talk about that. Yeah.
Craig, I don't think this was a necessarily an objective of the committee either, but I was curious if you got a general sense from the committee if plans are nice and wonderful, but the taxpayer has to vote for it eventually. Was there any consensus or discussion whether the committee thought that the community would support this kind of a plan? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And yeah, we talked a little bit about that, and to be honest, one of the things that we considered is if you have purely a sports related levy going forward, are you gonna leave out potential folks that would support the overall school? So the auditorium is one of those things that we thought there may be some interest from folks that would not necessarily be supporters of just purely an athletic facility, that they recognize that we were limited on what we have available for arts and music and whatnot in town, and that may open up a few more folks that would be interested in supporting that kind of a levy. The infrastructure that's necessary to be built for the school is something that just has to happen regardless of what the size of the school is. Of course, that affects the size of the facilities, but you're going to have infrastructure built for the fields, and you might as well take care of everything at once. There's no sense in going and opening up things 3 or 4 times. Let's just get it in there, done the first time. I think that's the overall sense of what we were talking about too, is that yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money for a new school, regardless of when you build it and where you build it and how big it is. It's going to be expensive regardless. So rather than, I think I speak for the committee in that most of us, and maybe all of us, thought that don't nickel and dime yourself up front and end up with something that is only good for 3 or 4 years, and then be in that constant portables, or how are we going to get the next thing? Bite the bullet up front, build a school that's sufficient size with additional capacity, try to get as much done with the capital levy as possible to be able to maximize the use of your bond limits. And maybe that's the way to work backwards, is figure out what school you want. You've got this much to build a school. That means we have to come up with this amount of capital levy to be able to build what we need. I think that's more of the approach that we were focused on, rather than let's not upset the taxpayer and try to keep it minimal. It's nice and it gets things built. Maybe it's the only way to get things built, but try it first to do what is needed before you fall back into a more minimalist approach.
So Craig, I know you've answered a couple of these questions, and the purpose for the committee to get together was to talk about if the community feels that we need this, these sports complexes, and the project itself and the master plan looks great, and everything that you guys have listed on this posed responses. But I'm not sure if this is more of a question for you or for the board. But are you guys planning on waiting for the board to respond to these answers before you meet again, or are you planning to meet again soon? And maybe I could pose this to the board as well. Will we then now discuss whether this is something that we're going to go out for or not?
But that's why that was the purpose of this.
Yeah, so my feeling was we wanted to have the committee meet early on because we knew that if we did decide we want to do it in the April election, we had a timeline to get the resolution in, but it didn't mean we're necessarily going to do it in the April election. That's still up for discussion.
Okay.
But are we asking about if the committee will continue to meet?
Well, is there a request, or is this just an answer to two questions?
I think that in the committee we set up, there was a start and end date. So I think that committee's done. We absolutely have the ability to request another committee with another charge and continue the work if the board wants to.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think that's how we understood it also, but we all want you to know that we would, if you have more feedback that you're looking for from us, and that we figure that's all we're trying to do is give you a little bit of a perspective from some folks in the community. I think it's safe to say that based on our discussion before that there's plenty of us that would be willing to continue on if it's a benefit to the school.
That's great. And so
I guess my feeling as a board member after reading this would be that it answered some of the questions that I personally had. And I guess my feeling would be is at this point that we merge this committee with, or invite this committee to be merged with the bond committee and discuss these two things side by side as with the bond, and so that it's all done together strategically, so that it all so it coordinates with each other. And if it ends up being that we run them both at the same time or different times, that committee together as a whole could give us a recommendation, I think, on running. If it's, I think it's legal to do that, but to have that committee do both.
is that the consensus of the rest of the board?
That if it was my personal choice, I would say that I don't favor doing a capital levy early. I think what Craig alluded to with seeing what we need in facilities for education, determining our debt capacity, and then from there going to see, okay, then what would we need for a potential capital levy? That makes sense to me, and I think that was some great comments that came out of that that committee, and so that might mean next February, it might not, but I think that there's time for discussions because I would not be in favor of doing an early capital levy.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
I think there's too much discussion to be had yet. I mean, this is a great presentation. Kudos to the members that are here and those that aren't, Greg. But I'm with Rob. I liked his comment working back. That stuck with me. I think we have a lot of discussing to do.
Okay. Well, Greg, thank you so much for your presentation and for all these all the work that you guys have put in already as a committee. And I think we will be contacting you soon, and hopefully.
When is the next facilities committee for the district? So the 22nd is for all the members?
It's just for facilitators.
For the facilitators, and then March
the 7th.
Okay. So I guess my feeling would be that everybody on this committee would be invited to that. I don't know if you have all their names or not, but Rob does.
Yeah, Sandra's got it. So I think this is the first time we've had the problem of a committee who's asking to do more work, and so we're a little confused on what to do with that. But we appreciate it, and stay tuned. I'm sure we will take you up on that offer as we go along.
And before, I'd like to thank Mrs. Bullis for helping us out with answer some questions about what our limitations were through this process.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Great. Moving on to item B5, McFarland Middle School presentation. Leave it press for a second.
Testing.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity we have of being able to present, or I should say showcase, how our students are growing since school began in August. And I'd like you to know that we've never been as intentional with especially the areas that we're working on right now as we are this year. And so especially in the areas of math and reading. And so as we go through this presentation, that's what we're going to be focusing on, is math and reading. So okay, so the next slide is how are we measuring student growth, focusing on reading and math. And so the first thing, as we look at the different assessments that we use to show growth and progress, we'll begin with the state assessment, the SBA. So go ahead, next slide. We've been taking the SBA now for 2 years, and the numbers at the top of each bar show the percentage of students who pass the SBA with at least a level 3 score. Apples to oranges means that we are seeing how the students have done at a particular grade level. And it shows only the student scores when they are at that particular grade level. So as you can see, there's a variety of scores there in the area of ELA. Now, if you look at the other way to look at it, which is apples to apples, what we're looking at here is the same cohort group of students as they move from grade to grade. Note the scores that you see are from the year, actually 2 years ago, 2015, and last year, 2016. We haven't taken the SBA yet. But one of the interesting things as you look at the SBA scores, we have some work to do, and especially in the areas of reading and math. And that's the reason why I made the statement that this year we have never been as intentional as we have in past years in those two areas. So the next one is, so what are we doing to intentionally help our students to improve on the upcoming SBA and other assessments that we have, and to show growth in other assessments that we use? To begin, this school year, we established 2 goals focusing on the district goal having to do with reading and math. So the site goal number 1 is the goal is to move at least 50% of our high leverage students, those who are ready to move to the next reading level, or just almost ready, and then move them on to the next level. For example, tier 3 students moving to tier 2, and tier 2 students moving to the next reading program and to exit the reading program because they would be grade level reading or grade level readers. And so that's our main goal. So how do we know when students are ready to exit? If we move to the next slide, these are the, what we have here are the rubrics for exiting in grades 6, 7, and 8. And so there is a very accurate and thorough way of exiting students. And if you'll see moving on the left-hand side there where it says assessment, you'll see all sorts of different assessments that we use. Okay, the STAR 360 assessment is what that is. Reading fluency, it's similar to DIBELS. We're testing the number of words read in a minute, basically, is what we're doing. MAP scores, SPOS scores, and teacher observation. And so each grade level is using a variety of triangulation, in this case more than 3 scores, but in these cases 5 different scores to determine whether or not a student is actually able to exit the program. So it's a very intentional and accurate process. Excuse me. The next one, of course, next slide is this one here is the slide for the rubric for Tier 3. Okay. Next slide. This is another test that we use. This is the test that we use in Tier 3, which is called the SRI test. And this test also tests Lexile scores. But the thing that I want you to look at here is that yellow square down below. It says the chart shows how our students have progressed since September. Notice that the yellow block shows that we have exited 12 out of the 38 high leverage students out of Read 180. And they're moving on now to Tier 2. So that's the 31% increase of the students that are actually exited that program and have moved into Tier 2, 31%. Remember that our goal for the entire year was 50%. So halfway through the year, we're already at 31% at this tier level. The next test that we use is the STAR 360 test. And once again, this test helps us to know the Lexile score. And the Lexile score, definition of Lexile, is the numeric value of an individual's reading ability. So if we look at this, this is a major tool that we use for Tier 2 students. And the definition, of course, of a Tier 2 student is those who are 1 to 2 grade levels below their grade level. So this graph shows the percent average Lexile growth of our high leverage students at each grade level. This one measures the number of exited students who have already exited the program out of Tier 2. The reason for the no score in the 7th grade is because we moved the higher leverage students into enrichment classes and elective classes to increase the numbers in those classes and give those high leverage students more opportunities for growth in a variety of different venues. So if you look at the next slide, this shows the projected exit out of Tier 2 reading. It's interesting here because you'll notice in 7th grade, the estimated projected exit is about 17 kids. In the 6th grade, it's about the same, and in the 8th grade, it's even more than that, it's 19. So those are the projected number of kids that are going to exit our Tier 2 reading program by the end of the school year.
No, I'm sorry, at the end of the quarter.
Oh.
And then we have another quarter yet after that. So I do believe we will meet our goal.
Okay, so what this is saying is that when a Tier 2 reading kid exits the program, that means basically he is at grade level in reading. And so that's significant. Okay, so moving on. So basically this slide reviews that out of Tier 2 and Tier 3 kids, right now we have 29% of our kids that have already exited or moved on to the next tier of reading. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, our second goal is in math, of course. And the goal for math is that 50%, at least 50% of the high leverage students, which is about 96 students, will improve on the higher level thinking questions. And what we call those are the DOK2 and DOK3 questions that you see, that we see on the SBA test and even on the MAP testing. And so the DOK2 and 3, meaning the depth of knowledge questions. And in other words, what that means is word problems. We know that if a student is having difficulty reading, he's going to have difficulty reading the word problems. So one of the main reasons why we're concentrating so much on reading is not only helping them to reach grade level in reading, but also to be able to figure out the math problems as well. The next, it says, once again, as we have done before in reading, we see that these next two graphs our need to improve. We see from these next two graphs that our need to improve upon our students' ability to answer higher level thinking questions, which are the types of questions which are in the SBA. The rigor on this test demands that our students improve in this area to close the gap between the state average and where we've been performing in the last 2 years. This next one before that, once again, we're comparing oranges to apples and apples to apples. This last one, this one is about the MAP score for math. Or no, excuse me, that's not it. That one is. Comparing fall to winter MAP growth. This is interesting because in the 6th grade, we've been seeing for the past several years that because of the transition between 5th and 6th grade, there is an implemental drop in the scores for 6th grade. And we see that across the state. That's sort of an inherent problem when we're talking about transitions, is when we see transitions from 5th to 6th grade, there is an incremental drop. But it's something that we are very concerned about and that we're working on in the 6th grade. You'll see in the 7th and the 8th grade that we are either halfway through the school year, we are either on track or above where we should be, especially in the 8th grade. So when we talk about expected growth, in the red there, the expected growth for the school year was 5 points in the 6th grade, 4 points in the 7th grade, and in the 8th grade would be 3 points. Moving on.
Dennis, was that math or reading?
That's math test. This is a comparison of the MAP tests along with another assessment that we use, which is from our brand new curriculum, which is the Discovery Ed curriculum, or the Discovery Math curriculum. One of the interesting things in the Discovery Math testing is that almost all of the questions that the students have to answer in Discovery Ed are DOK2 or DOK3 questions. And so if you see the measure of growth that's happening with the 6th, 7th, or not so much with the 7th grade, but with the 6th and the 8th grade, if you look at the effect size meaning the effect size measures how well that particular test or book or whatever it is program affects the students. The effect size that is recognized as being a good effect size is 0.46. So anything above that would be excellent. So the excellent growth in the Discovery Math programs is well above 0.46. In the 7th grade, for some reason, it's down lower. I'm not sure if I can answer that, why it is that way, but especially in the 6th and the 8th grade. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today is one of the things that we're also really happy about, and that is our SPED department has been working very hard, and I mentioned this to the board members that were attending our visit the other day. And we're very happy about the decrease in the frequency of Fs in our special education program. With those students that are on IEPs and have accommodations in general education classes, we have decreased the number of Fs significantly. Last year at this time in first semester, we had 42 students on with accommodations on their IEPs that were getting 64 Fs. This year, because of improved efforts in making sure that all accommodations are being met, we only have 8 students with 11 Fs. And so kudos to the teachers, especially kudos to the special education program and the teachers in that program who have really worked hard to make that happen in the general education classes. Also, one of the things that we are very happy about is the fact that we have a decrease in suspension referrals. And this next chart shows that decrease, whether they be in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension. As we have increased in student size, we've also noticed that, of course, that means even fewer because a greater decrease because of the increase in the number of students that we have. So last year there was a 27% percentage of suspensions. This year it's 21% of what we're recording. So one of the things before we get into this, just so in reference to the policy governance and ends policy of the district, this presentation has included areas having to do with ends policy number 1, having to do with Chromebooks, and all the tests that we take are all online. Demonstrating the quest for high-level achievement, meeting improvement and growth, showing growth by standardized tests and other available data, show continuous progress towards eliminating the achievement gap, making continuous progress over time, working towards meeting standards in ELA and math, providing students with opportunities to think analytically, logically, creatively, and using critical thinking, and also through the deduction of suspensions, helping students to display good character and showing a commitment to eliminate bullying and harassment. So that's how we've been working in McFarland since September, focusing on those 2 areas of reading and math. Now, do you have any questions?
Dennis, I have just a question on the last slide on the suspension, just so I'm not clear on when you say the percentage rate per population of 27% in 15-16, 21% 16-17. What exactly do you mean by that?
Josh, can you answer that?
If I remember right, we discovered is we recently had a discipline review committee meeting, and although our numbers are still high, we were down lower by 27% than we were last year. And what Dennis mentioned was, and that's considering we had more students this year than we had last year, so that's pretty significant compared to the 21% from last year. So I guess 2015-16.
Was that the entire school year, Josh, or is it?
That was the to this point, because we had our first one just now, and then we'll have one more. So that's not for the whole school year. That's just up to this point. So again, our numbers are still high, and we know that, and we're still trying to decrease that. But then when we looked at where we were at in 15-16, and then where we were at currently, it was kind of, well, at least we're below where we were at before. We're not satisfied by any means, but we got work to do in this area.
Do those numbers indicate number of students suspended, number of days of suspension, or number of incidents?
Incidents, Rob. So there could be
one could be a 3-day suspension.
There could be a student up there that was maybe put out 2 or 3 times for different infractions. But yeah, in school or out of school suspensions.
So I have a couple.
On the total side, obviously, because they're broken up as well.
Okay. have a couple quick questions. When you say high leverage students, and for reading there was 88 and for math there was 96, is that all 3 grade levels? Is that the number of students?
So just go ahead, Denise.
If I remember correctly, that's 50%. Our goal was 50% of our high leverage students. So in grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, 88 times 2 as the total number. 50% is that 88, and that is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Just to clarify, the high leverage student are those students who are right on the bubble. That could go either way, and of course we want them to be pushed up and not down. So that's what we mean by the high leverage students.
I have just one more question outside of this presentation. I was not able to make the school visit last week, but our district is preparing to go district-wide 1-to-1, and I just want to ask how you think. I know McFarland is 100% 1-to-1 right now. What have you seen, positive or negative, of that coming into McFarland?
Great question. I think it's been a work in progress, but one of the things that we were really concerned about going into this 1-to-1 initiative was number one, the age of the students, and how well they would take care of the devices, and how much damage would be done, because of the lack of responsibility. But one of the things that the kids have proven us wrong there is we have been very impressed with how kids take care of them. In fact, the incidence of damage has drastically reduced. At the beginning, it was maybe 10%. But as time has gone on, kids have done a lot better job of realizing that you can't put a pencil in between the lid and the keys and close it without breaking the screen. We've had a lot fewer incidents of things like that happening, or keys coming off or something like that. So the incidents of damage to Chromebooks it's been outstanding. The kids have really taken a real interest in keeping care of their equipment. Another thing that we see is as teachers have learned to increase the amount of usage and the level of usage of the Chromebooks, instruction in the classroom has increased. The energy that we see in the classroom increases. There's been some really great things, projects, some fantastic projects. One of the things that we got through, or we finished last semester, was our CUBE project. And of course, during that project, which was a school-wide project-based education project, that we used the Chromebook extensively. The students were actually able to design the cubes on the Chromebooks and really did a nice job. And so we're seeing much more of that happening in the classroom. So I think it's been a great thing.
Any other questions from board members?
Rob's question, Rob, you were at the 22nd. I'm not sure if I answered that correctly, but that's just based off the population. So if we currently have 960 kids, then obviously right now we're at 21% of those students who are either in school or out of school, compared to the 27% of the population that we had last year. So we're lower even though we have more kids. So I'm not sure if I worded that correctly.
Okay, so that makes sense now, and I was wondering that, but then you said there could be multiple offenders, so maybe it's not that high.
Correct. We did not divide them, and we weren't asked to do that for the state. So we call it, we count every infraction as an incident.
So if one kid
and there are more,
gets suspended 10 times, he counts as 10 kids.
Absolutely, and we have. And Juan, to follow up with your Chromebook question, just like there's some pros, there's also cons that we've learned, and we've gotten a little bit sharper as teachers in regards to how kids are using them. Unfortunately, so are the kids. They're sharper than us, so they can toggle back and forth from one window to another very, very fast.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Dennis and staff, for the presentation. That was great.
There is one last thing that I personally would like to say. And that is, I'm not sure if this will be my last presentation to the board, as I am retiring at the end of this year. And I just want you to know that it's been a tremendous privilege to be part of the staff at McFarland for such a long period of time. I've been very fortunate to have worked with some wonderful people. And these two people on my sides here have been tremendous supports to me for the last 14 years. And I say thank you to them, because without their help, I couldn't have done it. And I thank you for your support. By the way, I started teaching in public schools in 1975. So that's been 43 years. So it's been when I start thinking about the number of students that I've been able to know and associate with, that's a lot of kids. And it's been a great ride. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item C1. I will entertain a motion.
Juan, before you entertain that motion, I had a question on, just for clarification, on the WAPREP grant. Does that require board approval? It seems like to me if it does, that it should be in the consent agenda, but I wasn't quite sure from reading it. If it's just direction or approval.
It's just information that we should.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's with the intent to ask for the grant, right? It's not, we're not approving the grant.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion's been made by Director Hilmes to approve consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Mike Garza. Discussion. And I guess I have a question regarding the all of the updates on our policy series. And I'm wondering if they should be, I believe these are first reading. Am I correct?
I think it's a final reading.
Is it a final? Was it in last?
No, we don't have to do a
Okay.
first reading.
We're talking about for general consent, the operational policies, operating policies?
Yes, the district operating policies, yes.
Yeah, we just approved those based on by state requirements. That's why they're in general. So I don't think there has to be a first or second on those.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Under governance, I see them as district policies, and so as a board member, I don't see a lot of reason to change them.
I'm sure there are changes based off law changes anyways,
Right,
correct?
and that's-
And some
yeah.
procedural stuff.
Absolutely. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item D1, Superintendent Report. Dr. Hurst.
So this is a great time to be in Othello School District. There's a lot of exciting things happening. We heard about potential capital levy that's coming up in the sports arena, and we had a phenomenal facilities planning meeting for our first meeting. And it says up there a little bit more than 300. I'm not sure. I didn't do a count. I heard someone say it was close to 400, but it was a phenomenal evening, and it was really what we wanted. We were trying to get the community out there, a great number of community. They showed up in great numbers, and it was really about us listening to them. And for everyone that was there, we divided them up into 5 pathways. And it made sense to do the pathways because this is what Othello High School is aligning to right now per the 16th CTE pathways in the state of Washington. So we chose 5 of those pathways. We broke up and we had some questions. One of the questions was, what do the facility needs look like for this particular pathway? Do we need an elementary school? Do we need a middle school, a high school, or innovative high school? These are some of the comments that were shared in each one of those groups from the facilitators. And if you can scroll down. Once we came back and regrouped, the percentage that said a reimagined or innovative high school was right around 50%. 43% stated that maybe it could be something else, maybe not a reimagined or innovative high school. 7% wanted more time to just dive into the process. So that really led us to get together with the chair of the committee, which is Travis Goddard, and also David Spencer has been doing a lot of the training of the facilitators. And we really looked at the next process that we're going to use in bringing in everyone from the community. From that community meeting, we had 155 that said we want to be deeply involved in the process. So what we've done is we've actually taken those 155 and we put them in email groups. So we have that uploaded into our system so we can email them out communication on a regular basis, like when is the next meeting, so on and so forth. So what we're doing right now is we're getting ready to debrief all of the 15 facilitators. What worked, what was successful on that evening, what did not work, and we'll use that for our next meeting on the 7th. And then we also have facilitators training that will happen the week of the 22nd to 24th. There's a gap because there are some facilitators and myself that's going to be out the district for a little bit, so we all need to be involved in this process. So facilitators will be trained from the 22nd to the 24th, and then we have listed 7 dates where we're just going to come at McFarland Middle School. We're going to invite those 155 people and others that want to be involved. I hear Mr. Simpson said that he wanted to be involved in the process. We'll make sure we include him in the process, and really anyone else. We're really going to target those 155. We'll go to McFarland. Those facilitators will be trained. They're being trained on the design thinking process, and this is important because we really want them to engage in further conversation about what could the facility continue to look like. So they'll actually continue to work on that, and they'll come up with some models. But at some point, it'll stop being, okay, this is going to be the design, and then this will stop being the research, and then we'll start designing with an architect also. So we imagine that the last 3 meetings will probably be very specific around the design of the school facility itself. I think the first 4 meetings from March the 7th to 23rd, 28th, and April 11th, that'll really be digging in deeper about what it could be. Innovative high school or some other model that they came up with. Because again, if you look at the percentages, the numbers, it was 50%, 43, and 7%. So we're still going to dive into more of what that facility could look like. And then again, bringing in the other individuals that said they wanted to participate and bring in that conversation around sporting facilities also, and then come up with a recommendation.
So that was my question, Dr. Hurst.
Yeah.
Are you going to be dividing, like, of those 155?
Yeah.
I'm sure they were already in a group that they were interested in a certain subject. Are you going to continue to have discussions in those groups?
Yeah, so we thought about that. And this is still a continued conversation because we want to get the input of the facilitators. So, and that conversation will happen fairly quickly. But our first thinking is just breaking them up like we did in those 5 groups, those 5 pathways, having continued conversations around that lens. So for instance, it'll be, so what could the facility look like STEM across the entire system? So if it's a high school, say for instance, what does STEM look like at the high school or innovative high school? If it's business or management, then what does business management look like in this particular facility? So the great thing is we can still have those conversations separately, but then come together and then decide, okay, let's get some consensus on what it's going to look like, the actual design. And again, with them broken up into 5 different sections, they may come up with 5 different models, but we have time to actually bring them together and reach consensus on, okay, what is it going to be?
So, a question I have, I'm just thinking about this committee who obviously has some interest in the athletic facilities plus possible auditorium, those kind of things. How will they be able to come and still feel like they're having discussion about pertinent things to that committee based on within your scope of how you're wanting to do it?
So I think just knowing that, tonight that they want to be part of that committee, I think we have to talk about this with the facilitators and embed that in the conversation. And I think that's going to be part of the training also for the 22nd to the 24th. So we're talking about STEM, we're talking about business, we're talking about this, and this. Now, how do we bring in this other conversation and weave it in so that they feel part of it also? So I think it's just getting input from facilitators. But I have confidence in Travis and our facilitators also. So that's our process for.
Travis, I had heard that he had took a job outside of the area. Do we know? We might check with him and find out.
I heard that.
And we may need a different facilitator depending on when he's leaving.
Okay. Outstanding. Outstanding. We'll check on that one. We will be ready regardless. So if I can share, this presentation is really about governance. And for me, this is really about clarity. For me as a new superintendent coming into the state of Washington, we came in, we talked about clarity and coherence in the work and making sure that we're really focused. I know we sat down with board members and we talked about policy governance, and it's different. For me, especially being in the system for a number of years and then coming to the state of Washington. So being able to work with the Meridian Corporation really just solidified my thinking and clarified it also. So I wanted to just share a few slides with you that were some standouts just about governance. And again, it's a new term with relation to how we do things in certain districts in Washington. So it talked about a small group, but really the next slide really solidified it for me. And the governor has really three key jobs: setting the direction of the ship. So if we think about the ship being OSD, setting the direction of OSD, protecting the ship, keeping it on course. So that's where those ELs come in. And then monitoring the progress, the ship's progress. And what Karen really shared that was really key for me that stood out is you really can capture policy governance in two terms, and that is direction and protection. So directing the ship and protecting the ship. And when you put it in those simple terms, you get it. And then she really talked about leadership modes within this model, also fiduciary mode, strategic, thinking about the plan, and then generative, what is our preferred future. And then the next slide really talks about how these three leadership modes really falls in line with the ends interpretation, the monitoring piece. The generative thinking is really around the linkage and policy development, and fiduciary thinking is really around the executive limitations and governance process. And again, these are all just standouts for me. Some of my walkaways. I heard this before, but it really clarified for me the ends or the objective or the purpose. The executive limitations is really the standards of prudence and ethics. So really that whole idea of the lines that cannot be crossed or the boundaries. And then the board superintendent relationships, she really clarified, solidified for me. And then the governance process, also the GPs. And then the next slide really talks about specific roles. So the CEO identified as the superintendent really should be focused on the ends and really using the executive limitations as those boundaries. So what we should not be going out of. And really, as she talked about the CEO, she was talking about the executive team, the executive cabinet, and how we work together, and then even extending that. And then really the board looking at the governance process, and then that linkage and the relationship between the board and the superintendent. This piece right here was very key for me also. Just really being a new superintendent and wanting to know my specific role. Am I a passive participant in the board process? And she really clarified that for me also. But then she talked about some of the other roles between the board and the superintendent. And you can see those there. They weren't new. I've heard these before, but again, it solidified it for me. And then going to the next slide, talked about communication between the board and the superintendent. And again, it's not new, but again, it was great to hear again from another voice. And then the next slide talks about communication to the superintendent, to the board. And again, not things that are new, but again, nice to hear the piece again for clarity. So this is really the big takeaway for me. So when I talk about clarity and coherence in the district, one of the important things I heard from teachers and administrators is let's really focus our efforts so we can really achieve our goals. So listening to Karen from Meridian talking about really the ends are the objectives. And we really should have a process where we're laying out these ends in front of us and having a strategic conversation about how are we moving toward these ends. So this is really key because the team, the executive team, and we'll extend this conversation, will actually be collaborating this upcoming year on laying out the ends and developing a strategic plan around that. So you'll start seeing this circular process. And we're already doing this. We're already asking ourselves, what are we doing? What are we accomplishing now? And we've been calling it assessing our current reality. Where are we right now? So we're doing that. We know how to do this. Some of the pieces that we're doing right now, number 2, we're starting to benchmark also. And as it says, you benchmark from the best, you bring back and you make it your own. So we're doing that right now with some key pieces. And then looking at the impact that we desire to achieve is number 3. But then number 4 is really key because we have to make decisions once we decide what we're going to do. We benchmark the great stuff. We have to look at the capacity that we currently have in our district. And will that get us there with the people, resources that we currently have? And if the answer is no, then we have to have a serious conversation about how do we develop capacity or how do we get the capacity so we can move closer to our ends, really. And then really looking at the interpretation. So this is really key for me, is having a conversation about looking at the ends and interpreting. The interpretation should really be a rephrasing of the ends itself, but really going deeply into the interpretation or framework, like we've used as this is how I'm interpreting Global N1 with this particular framework. But then there's another step that she discussed with us also. So you'll see us at the very beginning of the year, we'll have all the interpretations done as a team, and we'll be presenting this to the board during the leadership retreat also for the board. And then you build your strategic plan, and then you operationalize your plan also. And then you, of course, have to have your measures in place, which was really key also because she really talked about setting specific performance goals associated with the end. So you'll see us doing that also. So not just the interpretations and having a plan, but also setting specific goals and outcomes. And then the other piece is reporting or monitoring the progress, which is where the board comes in, you're monitoring movement toward the ends. So again, this was really my big takeaway. this one particular graph, and you'll see us really focus on this with our training with our principals this upcoming year for their leadership retreat also. So it's an exciting opportunity. I do plan to continue working with the Meridian organization and with the team also. Any questions on Meridian?
Was it great for you? I mean, was this?
It
a
was
big deal?
awesome.
I thought just looking at those slides, the way it was very intentional.
Yeah.
And what I liked, I think what stuck out to me, everything was like, I just thought that the way that she explained it was the way that we learned it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I liked was that idea of giving us your interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talked about that, and we've actually had discussions about, but is that overstepping? Asking for interpretation ahead of time, is that overstepping, or just allowing the superintendent? So
no, she was very clear. She was very clear that those interpretations should be at the beginning of every year.
And so one of the things I'm guessing she shared with you was part of your responsibility is to let us know we're getting outside.
She did.
And so just a general question, do you think right now this board, where are we at? If you were to give it a scale of 10, we are operating at as good as we can at policy governance, 0 being we don't have a clue. Like, where would you say we are as a board? And I think we need to know that because
so I
we can
think,
always improve.
yeah, I think that we're as a board, we're very thoughtful in what we do. I think we are on the far right. I think I would probably have some conversations around some operational things that I think maybe we can look at. And maybe at the retreat, that would be a good time for us to talk about some of the operational things and just some ideas that I have also that would bring to the table. And then something for the board to consider also is just looking at having Karen and Meridian come in and work with all of us, especially if there's board members that haven't been through the policy governance. She really lays it out very nicely. I was able to bring in a couple of members. I brought in Gina Bullis and I brought in Pete. Matt wasn't available at the time, but even having her come back and integrate them so they can really become familiar with policy governance. Certainly being here for 8 months, it's not as intimidating as I thought initially. You look at the ELs, the 20 ELs, and you look at the 3 Ns, and you're, coming from California, it could be overwhelming process. But then when you look deeper, you realize, well, this is really the work of the superintendent. But going back to your questions, I think it's something for us to talk about, but I think we do a really good job of really staying focused around the ELs and the Ns and governance itself. So you didn't
do that.
Yeah, you didn't pin me down to a number though.
No, that's all right. But and I don't ask. I think that we definitely could improve, and I think it's important that someone who is, we're doing this every meeting, and someone who can maybe come in with a fresh set of eyes and say, well, this is an area you guys could improve on. That's important.
Yeah. If you looked at the, I shared the abridged version. There you go. That's what I was going to say. Well, she had the version, which was, I think, 270 something slides. She didn't go over all those slides, but I think over the 2 days that she spent with a portion of my team was certainly beneficial for us in moving forward. And we know that even as a leadership team, we have just some work to do, just as it relates to aligning everything to the ends to get us much closer to the ends. So Sandra's going to talk to us about board docs training.
So we have board docs come in on site March 29th, and Dr. Hurst and I are really excited with board docs coming on site to do a one-on-one training. With both of us being new, we feel, we're not sure we're using board docs to its full potential, or we don't know all the tools and resources that are available to us. So we're really excited to have them come. And so they laid down just a a little bit of what's going to happen that day. It's about 6 hours of training. And then we'll have 1 hour with the board. And so she kind of laid down some specifics of what we'll go over with the board. Voting, scoreboard, some goal tracking. And we want to talk about best practices as well. And so if there's anything in particular that you are wanting to learn about board docs, just go ahead and email me and I'll make sure that we get it on the training agenda for that day. But it will be scheduled for March 29th, and so I'll send out invites to your calendars.
What day of the week is that?
I want to say it's a Wednesday.
So the hour with the board, is there a specific time already set up?
So we're hoping for noon.
Okay.
If we can just do a lunch. It is a Wednesday.
This might be the same training we did last year. I mean, when I was looking at the agenda,
Uh-huh.
I think we've done this training. And I think it was all 5 of us. One thing that I was curious about then, and I think we asked about it, but we were just starting Board Docs Pro. For me, like with policy review, to be able to upload a document to like not right to the public area, but an area where you then could just approve it to go public or something like that. I remember at a WASDA meeting several years ago, it seemed like there was a superintendent that was talking about how his board members will upload documents that they could see with each other, and then he would do the same, and they would have their communications even through board docs that way with documents, and then when it was ready for going live, then it would be put into the public area. So I've always been curious if that's something that we're able to do with Board Docs Pro or not as well. But the other part of that, board, do you remember, I think it's not agenda, that's the training we got, what was it, last year? When we went to Pro?
Right.
Yeah, it was, so just an FYI.
Right, and so we'll make sure that it's more geared towards Board Docs Pro. But if there's anything else that, you want to get clarification on and so forth, so that she's prepared, we'll go ahead and just email me and then I'll pass that along.
So if the board can please make sure you put that in your calendars, March 29th at noon, here in the boardroom, I believe.
Yes.
So next we'll have Mike Villarreal come up and talk about WildPrep.
I think you have some slides that were given. And here at the beginning of December, the Othello School District was invited to participate in a grant. And so we received an application or invitation to apply for a grant. The selected groups of districts were invited. And so our teaching and learning department received that grant right at the beginning of, I think it was the first week of December. And we've had the intent behind the grant was to be able to get our an adoption process to be able to look and review. Most districts across the state are reviewing their sexual sensitive issues curriculum, bring it up to speed. I think as you probably noticed in the letter, or the letter of intent really is, we were to write a letter of intent. Some of the districts around us, Moses Lake and Granger and some other districts have participated in that. It's a small grant, it's about $10,000. It covers the training that would take place. OSPI has partners up with Cardia. Cardia is an outside training company. And if given the opportunity, we get the grant, they would come in and provide that training right when school gets out for our staff. And so one of the key pieces with the grant, we currently have our adopted curriculum is FLASH. And as you're aware, FLASH is Family Life and Sexual Health. One of the key pieces is that It requires that, and you probably saw that in the slides that it offers, and it was bold in there that all the lessons would be taught. When I came to the district over 10 years ago, we had an ad hoc committee that lessons were taken out at the time. Things have changed, and over the years we've actually had to add units to our curriculum because we've been out of compliance and the laws have changed. And so what you'll find in our letter, and as I've met with talked to the folks from Cardia, we'll be able to teach all the lessons. I've met with folks from the middle school and the high school, and that's where we teach our flash lessons. And they've had an opportunity to look at the parameters of the grant. And if we get it, it'll be one way that we kind of align our 6 through 12 sensitive issues curriculum. And one thing that the grant does provide, while we use the flash curriculum, the grant, when they come in, they will actually offer, and they'll meet with our folks and say, you have flash, there's the no curriculum, there's several other curriculums if you'd like, you can choose that meet all the state and Ombudsman Act, meets all statutes. And so you can actually choose from this menu of curriculums, and it's on one of the slides that you saw in the PowerPoint. And it does bring us up to speed, and it makes us stay compliant with that family life and sexual health curriculum. And so we're up for it in the district. Currently, like I said, we've had to backfill, and it's one of those things, if we don't participate in the grant, then it's something that we'd have to do on our own, and do the research. The good thing about having this is through the grant, we'll have somebody provide this pretty in-depth training to our staff. So what I wanted to do is let you know that I've got the letter of intent pretty much scripted from what I've gotten help from Moses Lake School District that they started this year, sample letter, and so they're just waiting for us to be ready to move forward. And so really it's more of an informational piece. And I don't know if you have any questions, but this has been something that we got right at the very beginning of December, and I've had the opportunity to meet with staff from middle school and high school. It also does impact, and by the way, it does impact our special ed population, our students. There's actually a curriculum that meets their needs that's been adapted for our special needs students too. So
this grant is good for how long, Mike?
The grant, it's a one-time shot. So it's $10,000 to get you training for our staff and the curriculum that comes with it. And so whatever curriculum we purchase, it'll get us the new curriculum and the staff training. They give it, the way it works is Cardia OSBI has this federal grant that goes straight to them. Really, almost money won't even come through us. It'll go right to Cardia. They make the contract. It goes right almost strictly to them. And then it'll be a question of getting all the training squared away. And so
if once we get the grant, then technical assistance is continuous for?
Well, once we get, and here'll be the thing, we'll have the grant, we'll get our folks trained. After our folks are trained, then it'll be up to us next year that we'll need to get our folks trained again if they move on and things like that. And that's, depending on the curriculum, we'll need to make sure that we get and we do that annually anyways, because flash sensitive issues, about every 2 years there's been a renewal. We sent folks this year. I took a group of middle school folks because there was a renewal, 2016 flash. There was an update. There was enough changes this year in the new flash that we did not teach it, even though I took the staff to it. There was too many changes that we're going to teach our old flash because I didn't feel comfortable. We'd have to go through a revision process. And so, as you're aware, in the last couple of years with regards to the transgender pieces and same-sex attraction, the things, all those different pieces. There's new content in it. We haven't gone through all that process, and so those are some of the things, the training that would come in into that piece, and our folks have not been trained in that, and so and that would be part of the training that would come with our teachers.
It mentioned in the slides that all lessons must be taught, but then it says local adaptations are allowed and encouraged. What does that mean exactly?
Okay, the content, all the content has to be has to be taught. All the lessons will be, and what they've done, what they explain is this. For example, condoms will have to be taught. The usage of condoms. You can't take out that content. You might be able to use a different different scenario, different piece, but you can't remove the content. And so they have some topics. The way they explained it, this is some of my notes when I met with talked to the fellow. He says certain topics, red cannot be changed, yellow may be changed, green can be changed. He says there's very specific units and content areas within the Flash curriculum that said you can change this item, you can replace it with another curriculum because they have different curriculums, that you can change this one for another, but there's certain content, core curriculum pieces that you can swap out. But certain pieces, because it's research-based and they've tracked it, part of it being the research and getting the money is they're going to also do some evaluations at the very end. You saw on the slides, they're going to do some pre and post tests along the way and get some surveys from the kids and the teachers that are teaching it. And but there's some key pieces you won't be able to take out, and all the lessons have to be taught. And it's part of and so parents will still have the right to opt out like we have before. So that, it's one of the pieces I think as a board is we go through this process, and that was one of the areas that the teachers saying, hey, if we're teaching all the lessons, whereas before years past, we might have had 20 lessons, we only taught 10. We're teaching now all 20 lessons. And so that needs to be very clear up front. Parents still can opt out, but really the district will be teaching the entire enchilada. So.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate the presentation.
Just a quick comment. Nothing, not about this, but just along the same lines as Dennis Adams. I saw that you were moving on after this year. I just wanted to tell you as a board member, appreciate you being here and wish you luck and wherever your future ventures take you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been a good opportunity to work for Othello School District. It's been a good place. A lot of wonderful experiences, a lot of good people. This has been home, and it'll continue to be so. Thank you for the opportunity to work here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to item D2, the director discussions. We'll begin with a legislative report by Director Simmons. If there is one.
Director Hill Simmons.
Still nothing to report on. No, I'm just kidding. It's a little bit overwhelming because right now there's so many bills that are being considered, but nothing really that's being passed yet. So what I wanted to focus on is a little bit what I had sent all the board members, and that the big one is the discussions that are happening with educational funding based on the McCleary decision. And so right now there is a House bill that I believe would be considered a Democratic bill, and the Senate bill, which is considered a Republican bill. But in both cases, I think focusing on the positives of both, there's a lot of details and disagreements on certain things, but positive things is one looks at a per pupil funding at $12,000 per pupil, and the other one $12,500. And I think that right now, and I want to meet with Gina to get some definites on this as we go forward before I report more to the board in future meetings, but it's like 10,000 something, Gina, per pupil or something like that. Even less than that. I just took our budget divided by how many students we had to simplify it, but so even with the idea of the levy going to a statewide levy and the fact that truly the levy dollars might be less for us, when you look at the big picture, funding is going to increase. And so that's the positive part of it. I looked at one document that showed all the levy implications to go to a statewide levy. And actually, I would say for most districts, it drops when you just look at that piece. But when you look at the overall funding, they go up. And that is very confusing to me because some districts like us go down and other districts go way up and they're the same size as far as what their state levy will be. So I'm sure that's a complicated piece. But that's the big one I think right now for us. They've talked about the bill for the levy cliff. That to me, that doesn't affect us at all. We're not even close to, or did I say levy cliff, the levy max? We're not even close to that, so that really doesn't affect us. Obviously, a lot of discussions are going on when it comes to capital facilities and capital projects for that because everyone's feeling the push to get more facilities because of the class size reduction. I will say that in those proposals, the Senate proposal, they would repeal Initiative 732 and 1351, the class size reduction in their proposal. So that could have implications on class size too. I still don't get the legislative updates. I get them kind of secondhand through because I'm on the news list server. But Stuart he still gets them because he was legislative rep like 15 years ago, and so he sends me copies of them, which is fine. But so I go to it and I can get it off there, but I don't get the I don't get all the stuff that he does for some reason. So
Well, one thing I haven't been getting is the Twilio, and I usually do that.
So anyway, is there any specific things that the board was curious about? There's just a lot of bills that are just still being discussed, going back and forth.
Thanks for the reading.
I know that this is the time of year, Director Simmons, that there's a legislative conference or day in Olympia. Do you know when that is, and do you know who you'll attend?
Are you talking specifically about the one that we just got invited with our legislators?
No, I'm talking about WASDA.
Legislative, I think, was last week.
Oh, okay.
And I won't be attending.
Okay. Okay.
One question I had is, has there been any, from a legislative front, not on a state level, but on a national level, has there been any press or anything from WASDA? I haven't seen anything about the new ed secretary.
I haven't read anything locally about it.
I'm well aware of we're at the union's position on it, but I haven't seen anything on our association, the teachers union anyway. So I'm just curious if there's been anything that you've seen.
I haven't. Doesn't mean it's not out there, but it hasn't been. Everything that I've been reading has been local, state issues.
Thanks, Director Simmons. Student rep report. Kiara and Caden, you guys have anything for us?
I got some stuff. Okay, so we really want to keep you updated with the programs that we're trying to run throughout our school. And one of them that we started, and we have been advertising at basketball games and wrestling matches with like footballs and towels, is the OHS majority 79%, which basically says stay away from drugs, don't do them. Like, not a lot of kids do it in our school, so why are you, like, it doesn't make sense. Then a lot of things that are going on, like upcoming, is obviously we have fundraisers coming up like Got Milk, mini homecoming, and our school's just gonna be really busy in the next couple months, especially with graduation and a bunch of other things. So just want to keep you updated on that.
Thank you. Someone's excited to graduate.
It's been a long 4 years. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of just going off. Well, I had a quick comment about the 79% kind of deal. Last Tuesday, I think it was, when we actually had our whole leadership class. I don't know if you saw maybe posts and stuff. We were asked to post a picture of something that makes us work hard, that we strive to be proud of, that makes us stay away and not engage in drugs and alcohol. And so I think that, and we actually had more, our goal was to get not just leadership, but other kids in the school. And we actually had quite a few kids that were like, oh, well, what's that? I should do that too. And we had a lot of postings, so I think that was something that brought it up and was really good. And I also had a comment. So Project Bridges, I talked about it with Kaden, and we looked over dates and stuff. And May 10th is actually, it's a Wednesday, and the other date was May 5th, which would have been, good, because last year was May 5th. But Friday, I don't know if people want to come, Friday. So Wednesday, I decided was good. Told Mr. Vergara about it. You'll be getting more as I'm not this week. After this week, my attention is going towards it, making the poster or making the flyers, getting the principals rolling with ideas about their presentations. And of course, I have in my mind what needs to be fixed and how that's going to happen. So it's just a matter of time and getting him in meet. We have time to get in meetings with him. He's very available, so that's nice. So it'll just be going through the motions.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Any questions? Board?
I have a question. So at the last board meeting, 2 board meetings ago maybe, there was a comment that was made that you didn't know where you stood as a student body or maybe as a leadership group, but you have the chance to get to know the new principal and.
Oh yeah. I think it's much better now that we see him around. I see him almost every day because I'm an office aide. I mean, and not saying anything bad or anything, but I rarely saw Kovo, and I think that kind of had an impact on me. Where's my principal? But not bad because I love Kovo and he's a great and excellent person. But seeing Mr. Vergara every day and his attitude when parents come to pick their kids up, he's like, "How are you?" Having an engaging conversation with everybody he sees, it's just very warming to see that and know that he's very open and available. His door is always open when I walk by, and it's just nice to be able to know that I can go into him, have a conversation. He has time. If he doesn't have time, schedule a time and he'll make time. So I think that more students are getting the feel with him, and as time goes on, it'll be even better.
Personally, he called me at the end of the school and he asked me to come in his office, and we just talked about future projects going on. We want to hold a talent show, and that's never been done at the high school before. And so he has a lot of ideas, and I don't think the student body doesn't know that, but I think if we convey it to him he can do this, he is very imaginative. He really knows where he wants to go with the school, and I think that is very helpful.
Thank you, guys. That's awesome. So moving on for director discussions, I believe we've already talked and set up a tentative date for our annual retreat. Just want to make sure that everyone is still available and it is still open for us. I believe Tony had mentioned the weekend that would work, and it's the first weekend of May, and so we're still. That's still a go, right? Because if not, we need to make changes now.
I got it. Works for me. I'm good.
Okay. So make sure that's in your calendars then. Friday night, I believe, is the 5th. Be there all day the 6th, and we could come back early morning on the 7th. Is that correct? Okay.
So the board plan on bringing their families again this time? Or as president?
I believe so. I mean, it's open.
You don't mind?
I don't mind at all. No. So we could, the closer we get to the retreat, then we could talk about more specifics. Okay. Moving on, just feelings and comments on the PTA dinner.
I thought it went really well. I think it was a good first event, and I haven't heard anything, only positive things from it. So I think the PTA members that I talked to, at least, appreciated the effort that we made to honor them and tell them what we were doing. And that's all I heard was positive from it.
And I think I've heard the same. And so, anyone else want to comment on that? Okay.
I like that we had. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I like that we had a increased showing from the first dinner that we had. I'm texting a PTA president right now because I was supposed to invite you guys to something. I don't remember when it was now. So as soon as I did a response, I'll let you know.
All right, moving on then. Those of you who attended the McFarland visit, some quick comments.
Yeah, it was a good visit. When we did our classroom visits, I liked what the SPED teachers are doing. The effort they're I think Dennis mentioned it tonight, getting certain kids out of certain tiers or programs, and he kudoed them. And the time I spent there, you could see that. Something that was interesting, and when we did our student debrief, you brought up President Garza the Chromebook thing. I don't know if we had 6 or 8 of them. 2 of them liked them, and the rest of them disliked them. It was like, and the reasoning was like Josh said, where kids are outsmarting the teacher and figuring ways around the securities, and they're on websites. And one young man said that all they do is play games on them. So that was kind of like disheartening, I guess, to a certain extent. But the fact that, there was 2 of them that were okay with it, and the rest of them said that, all they do is play games because kids go around. I forget the security thing they mentioned or whatever. But no, it was a good visit. I did your strawberry milk thing. You'll be proud of me.
All right.
Oh, I do have to mention that our boss was caught red-handed sending a text, and he was called on it.
Yes, I was. It was work.
Any other comments?
Just a little bit more about what Mike was saying. It really surprised me what those kids said. And I think for them it was it seemed like it was a distraction, and but I do think some of their issues they had was maybe before this software, this Guardian software that they're starting to use, where the teacher can actually look at a kid's Chromebook from their desk, log into it and see what they have open maybe, and then block things. I think maybe that'll get better. But I was just surprised. I just asked a question thinking that I was going to get all these kids and go, these are awesome. The teachers had told us in the staff meeting how much they appreciated it. They thanked us. And then in there I said, so who likes Chromebooks? And what do you guys think of the Chromebook? Like I said, all but 2 said we don't like them. So I think it's just probably part of maybe getting used to maybe using a device as a tool rather than a toy.
Right.
As well, but it was a surprise to hear that.
Interesting. Anyone else? Not? Moving on. As you've noticed, the Adams County Development Council has invited all elected officials February 21st. It's a Tuesday of this year to a legislative reception. And so they'd like to know if we will be attending. And so if any of you are interested, please let me know. And I will let them know because they need to prepare, they need a number, I guess. And so if not, you could call them yourselves. But it's open to all elected officials, I believe. As you can see, the guest speakers are one senator, one of our representatives, and a different senator from a different district. And so it's a meet, greet, and network with state leaders. And so if anyone is interested, please let me know. Does anyone know now that they would want to go to attend something like this?
I gotta look at my calendar. I'd love to go, but maybe it'd be a great opportunity. That's Tuesday.
So it's an event that takes place from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And so if there is a group of us going, we might have to discuss an overnight and then come back in the morning.
That's next Tuesday.
It's the 21st. Yes. It does interest me as well, but that's the difficult part is that it's late. So it's kind of late notice to make plans. But I think I might have to talk to my wife about it.
Okay.
So, did anyone else do it? Would they do it if it was a couple of us?
I think I'd be interested. I still need to make sure that I'm available, but I'm interested in attending that.
Are you a government entity now?
Just so you know, there is no school that day. That's part of midwinter break. Yes, it is. Yes. So,
No, kids.
so anyway, let me know if we get enough interest hopefully by the end of this week, you could let me know, and then we could make some plans. And so,
I assume you just need to know if there's going to be a quorum, right?
yeah,
Because you have to make an announcement.
right,
if there's gonna be a
exactly.
quorum.
And that's part of the reason why I want to know numbers. Okay. Moving on to the next item, and last item for director discussions is upcoming director elections. I was able to contact our election official, county official, Heidi Hunt, and she mentioned to me that there are 3 board members that are up for election this year. The filing deadline is May 19th. So May 15th through the 19th is when we need to file if you're interested in continuing on as a board member. I did also ask, because I know that there's a board member that has just sold his home. And I also asked what the ramifications are of that board member maybe possibly moving somewhere for a while and not knowing whether he's going to come back to that district. Her answer was very clear and said, if that board member on these dates is not living in that district, he cannot file. So, or she. And so she made that very clear. And so
It's based on the filing date, not the election
it's
date?
based on the filing date.
It's interesting.
And then did she say that if you're in a district on the filing date and you file for it and move out, are you good for the next 4 years in that district?
I didn't ask that specific question, but it sounded like that's what she was saying.
Because you'd finish your term.
Because you have to finish your term if you're elected.
Area.
Right, so if you live in one district, you filed, you moved before election date, but you're still not elected, you just finish your 4-year term.
She did, as we were talking about this, she did mention something that I thought was interesting. She said that more and more school districts, as she's gone to these election meetings, are going towards at-large positions rather than district positions, because they're having a really difficult time finding enough people to run. And so when they're opening to at-large districts, there's more candidates that are applying to or filing to these positions. And so
And that's an issue in my district. That's what I've been trying to recruit.
I'd be,
I've been trying for years.
You've been there for 23 years.
I know, I've been
You
recruiting.
don't give anyone a chance.
I've been recruiting every year.
so anyway, that's the latest information. So
I'd be open to a future board discussion about the possibility of taking to the public to vote, opening all of our districts to be at large in the future.
Okay.
I don't think you could do it this
this
soon enough
election
to
cycle.
change these 3 people that are going this time, but I think it's something that the board should discuss and maybe look at if the board felt like the community wanted that, put it on the ballot this fall to change all the districts to at large.
Maybe we can add that to our agenda.
Just as a discussion.
Somewhere we have a map of the districts again.
We redistricted them.
Yeah. Do we remember if we have it in Bulldogs?
It should be. It was just before,
I can't remember if we did it before Bulldogs or
what year did you come on, Mike?
3 years.
So we were board docs. Just started.
I'm pretty sure I looked it up and saw it.
I can tell you that I need training on the board doc search because I can never find anything when I'm trying to search. That definitely needs to be part of the training.
Okay. Okay. Well, that'll come up, Director Ashton, at the next board meeting. I'll put that in director discussion so that we can have that discussion. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Moving on to item E1, assurance of organizational performance. And every one of these items, E1, E2, E3, EL4, EL5, and GP12, every SurveyMonkey is in compliance. Every question is in compliance. There was one comment on EL4, question number 5. Hold on. Question number 4. And I'm not sure if whoever wrote that comment wants to explain.
There was also a comment in GP12.
Oh, okay. We'll go over that comment as well. Hold on. Let's start with EL4, question number 1. I'm not sure if that's just a positive comment or if there's something that says, I am happy to see the proactive customer service training taking place, placing Chromebooks at each school site where stakeholders can complete short satisfaction surveys is a great idea as well. I look forward to seeing information on the feedback in later reports. Great work. So is that a comment that everyone would agree to just stay on there as just a positive note? Sure. Okay. Question 2, there were no comments in compliance, all 5 of us. Question number 3, comment reads, I appreciate the intentional efforts made in the last 6 months to get more community members involved in our district work, which seems like the same type of comment. So everyone agree to keep that there. Question number 4, while no new district advisory committee have been formed since August, we have at least one ongoing advisory committee, facilities committee. It would be appropriate in the future to give evidence that the ongoing committees are following this policy. Makes good sense to me. Any other comments? We'll keep that one as well. Moving on to question number 5. I have received many comments on the value of our weekly letter, and I have as well. A good positive comment. Everyone okay with that one? And then there's no more comments, and this was in compliance all the way through. Any questions? Comments?
So you just add those comments to the monitoring response document.
Moving on to E2EL5. I'm not sure. I don't think there was any comments on any of the.
Yeah, number 5.
Okay, question 5. I'm sorry. Was the evidence provided for item D more about students, or was it referencing discrimination, harassment, or other mistreatment of personnel? Now, whoever wrote that, are you asking board members?
Well, this is an EL report, so it'd be asking the superintendent, I believe.
Oh, with the report that he gave? So, was there any evidence provided for item D, which is protect against discrimination, harassment, or other mistreatment? Dr. Hurst, do you remember if that was included in your report or not?
Give any evidence that
A while ago. I might have wrote that.
I know I didn't.
Right. That's a good point.
So I think I might have wrote that question, and I believe it was that maybe the evidence looked like it was referencing discrimination, harassment, or mistreatment of students, whereas the EL was about staff. I think that's what, but I'm going back right now to the monitoring report. That would have been from.
It was like a month ago.
Yeah.
January 16th is when you did it.
Question 5. Item D, no. Question
16th, we didn't have a meeting.
No, that's when you did the survey. It was the 16th that shows on here.
Oh, gotcha, yeah. I could go back to the actual report. then I maybe can. And I think actually, yeah, Chris, the question's for you, so you probably want to do the same thing.
Right.
I'll try to see why. Yeah, okay, so if you look at it, it says D, protect against discrimination, harassment, or other mistreatment. And then it says students are notified of these policies and protections in student handbooks. I think that was the part where I think that's why I was asking the question. So was this referencing students or staff?
Sorry, Dr. Simmons, did you read that one more time?
Just the heading of it was item 5, part D. I want to operating without written personnel policies that protect against discrimination, harassment, or other mistreatment. And the answer was right out. Students are notified of these policies and protections in student handbooks.
I hear what you're saying.
And by posting of flyers in the offices and areas of each. And then the evidences were like staff handbooks, but then it went to PSC bargaining agreement as an evidence. So I was just curious about, are students notified about, I just wonder why students would be notified about the harassment of, right. And I think there's an EL that actually applies to that too. Well, not positive treatment of students, maybe. But okay, that's what I was trying to clarify on that, though.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. So does that clear up the comments? You want to remove the comment, or you
It was
want?
just a question.
Okay.
It was a question to remind me just so I can get clarification. So I would put that in the.
Okay. Great. And the last question was, there was no comments and unanimous in compliance. And so moving on to item E3, GP12. Question number 1 had a comment. I think we should look at expanding this pay to all formal board activities and events, including board meetings, workshops, if they are not on the same night as the board meeting, and out of town professional development. Annual max should stay the same.
I wrote that comment. My intention of the comment was to get the board thinking when it comes to policy review to this item. So it's really more applicable to when it gets to the review section than it is in here, because we're in compliance with what it says.
Right.
Although I would note that it's not possible to be paid for regular board meetings at $23 a year to come up with $4,800. So the numbers don't quite match, but
I think the 4,800 might be in our CW.
Right, but our policies don't necessarily have to say that. But that was part of my reason to put it in there, because that doesn't really add up.
How do we change that though?
I thought we had as well.
To lower.
Yeah, to match the 23.
I think I brought it up last time too. that it doesn't, you can't, 23 times 50, there's no way you can get $4,800 out of that.
Right.
So it's kind of, I'm terrible at math, but not that
Not
bad.
even, not even with Common Core math, you can't get that.
So, any other comments? Is that you good then?
Mhm.
Okay. Question number 2, comment was, should this pre-authorization be documented? So I think, again, this is just a question. In the past, it's been a verbal authorization.
It doesn't really say one way or another. It was just one of those things that I put the comment in there, wondering what the board thought if we are in compliance with this, because it doesn't say verbal or written either way. And so I don't know if there's any way to prove if as a board member I said, okay, who pre-authorized when and where and what, there's nothing, we don't document any pre-authorization. So I don't know how we hold ourselves accountable if we don't, or hold the president accountable to give us pre-authorization if there's no documentation or not even really yet.
Guess, yeah. That's a good point.
I would be comfortable with just making sure that any formal authorization happens in board meetings, so it's recorded. The written part to me is the one that needs to, but you need, like, for instance, when you asked, it was in a board meeting, so there was meeting minutes, and
I don't know that it would be in the minutes, but it might be in a recording.
definitely in the recording, so someone could always reference it if it became an issue.
You could find it.
But it doesn't even say that, so that could be.
No, my question was more
I take it
of how do we
policy review.
say that we're compliant? We don't have any way to say that we really are.
A lot of what we do is through observations.
Just observation would be it.
Did that answer your question?
We're allowed to determine compliance by that anyway.
Yeah.
So those both were just questions, Tony, not necessarily things you want included in the
Okay.
response document.
Great. Question 3, there's no comments, and so again, it's a unanimous in compliance, and so great. Moving on to then item F1 under policy review. As you can see under ENS 2, there has been their changes are on the right side, I believe, of the document. Has everyone had an opportunity? I know that this has been on for a couple weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And is everyone okay with the changes made to ENS 2? Has anyone got any additional?
I did, but they not uploaded.
Okay, so do you want to?
I think she's going to get them.
I had emailed the changes I did to ENS 2. Yeah, I think we'll need to. Sorry about that.
So your changes aren't on here.
No, and okay, they're actually some just rewording of a couple things on the
Spell correction.
No, it's actually just rewording, and just wording that I thought made more sense to me, but the board might like Tony's better, and I'm fine with that. One of the things I'll just talk about is every student will graduate on time. So philosophically, I have an issue with that just because, traditionally we've always said kids need 13 years of education to be ready for college and career, right? But what if a student doesn't? Does that mean we failed them just because that student needed a little extra time? So I think it's good to have a goal for on-time graduation, but maybe not every student can have 4 years of high school and be ready. And I think that in my mind, we'd be doing a disservice to push someone through and just say, well, it's 4 years, so it's time for you to go if they weren't ready, rather than to say, you know what, you need to stay an extra year so you are ready. So I reworded that one, and then I'd like to add another one that just says we will see annual improvement in our on-time graduation rate. And I didn't have that in my changes, but that was what I wanted to add.
So did you take out the every student will graduate on time?
Is that the one I sent you? Let me look at it again because it had all the red on it and everything. I don't know why it's. Yeah.
It's just it's just an email. So it's not on board docs yet.
She's putting some copies.
Okay.
Do you consider getting your GED early, graduating on time?
You don't graduate.
But the issue is,
Well, the reason I ask is because that's something that my youngest son has discussed with me about taking his GED and going into a technical, some type of technical college. Is the GED this? I don't, it's equivalent, yes.
But I think if you left the system, though, you would no longer be counted as one of the cohorts.
Right.
So
that's my point. Is
As
that
far as how you figure it statistically, I don't know how the state.
Yeah, I don't know. But when we're tracking cohorts,
So did you just take that out? Okay, prepared for, every student will graduate prepared for a rewarding career or other higher educational opportunities.
yeah, for me, it was more important to be graduate prepared than to graduate on time.
Just the line from the top up down. So that's what's set up on the first one. The higher opportunities.
Yes, just moved it down to there, and then I couldn't do it when I was trying to do it earlier and just keep it in red for some reason. So I would add another bullet under the high school one that says, I think it said, Othello School District high schools will show annual improvement in graduation rate.
I see.
Either one. Either one. I think both
Oh, no.
improve.
They're the same. That's what the student reps. So I like it as well.
So above it, I'll just kind of explain too. I don't know what the equal to or exceeding the current minimum state standards when you're measuring yearly academic progress means. So to me, that I didn't know what that meant. So I said, I thought every student will achieve yearly academic progress of at least one grade level per year and will be academically prepared for successful middle school experience. I put that in there because I like how Tony set the tone of by the end of third grade, they're at grade level. Then after that, though, they have to keep growing at least a grade level a year. And that gives us an opportunity for kids to grow more, but also then what if students enter in fifth grade from a different district and they're behind? We want them to grow more than a year to eventually catch up to, so that that was a thought process. And I changed them both the same way, I think. Essentially being academically prepared for the next step. And I put academically because this specifically, this ends is about the educational part of the academic part, I felt like. But I also understand that kids should also be prepared emotionally and that kind of stuff. The school district does play some role in that.
So Dr. Harris, do you have any questions about the rewording?
No, I'm processing right now. I don't have any questions.
Okay.
That would be OSD high schools will show yearly improvement in graduation rate. High schools, plural.
So, Director Ashton, do you see the change that.
Sorry, an on-time graduation rate, I think what I said, but it could be just graduation rate. And so maybe 90%, if you have the same philosophy of some kids need 5 years to get prepared, and that's the most important part is to get prepared, maybe 90% is really the goal. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's why I didn't want to put a top number either, just to prove.
Chris's presentation earlier.
Yeah.
If I was understanding it right, he's saying it's on me to come up with a specific goal in my presentation.
I like that.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to deviate from this.
So for the rest of the board, under elementary, are you guys, do I get consensus to keep that change? Sounds like there's consensus. Good. And then, okay, under middle school, did you explain that already, Director Sims?
It's the same as
Same
the other
thing.
one.
Yeah. And then the high school, there was a bullet point you wanted to add. What was that again?
That would OSD high schools will show yearly improvement. That'd be with graduation rate or graduation rate. What would be the right way to say it on?
First year high school.
With, I think. With our
In graduation rates. And I don't, would the board like to see on time be specific with the on time graduation or just graduation? Is graduation too broad?
Well,
I don't mind on time there because I kind of made my point about they will graduate prepared. The on time part, we just want to see improvement in because we know we're lower than we want to be.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with on time, or I'm okay with leaving it out.
I'm okay with leaving it.
I want to go back to the first one. Every student will achieve academic progress of at least one grade level per year. So it isn't that saying they will graduate on time.
No.
So if they're in ninth grade and they don't achieve progress of at least one grade level, then they're not going to meet this, right?
What if a student comes into our district in ninth grade or 2 years behind, right?
And so that one's going good. But what if there's already a student there that's a ninth grader and he doesn't?
Then we've failed that student. If he's already caught up and then he gets behind.
Right.
We're failing that student.
So
One way or the
the
other.
answer to your question is yes, with our students who enter
There's some
ninth
accountability
grade,
there, obviously, but
if they enter ninth grade and they're on track, the answer would be yes, but that's why I didn't want to say every student will graduate on time, because what about the ones who enter our system in high school who aren't? Not that we can't still strive for that, but maybe they're not ready. Right.
curious what the student reps think of this.
Did he just wake you up?
Did you say what?
This is big. I mean, this is really the end results for our students when they leave Othello School District.
If you want to.
I understand what Director Simmons is saying is that, like, it's not saying that every student's going to graduate on time. It's that we're going to do the best of our abilities to make them advance every single year. So I think that works.
So improvement, I think, is better than on time. Show improvement, yearly improvement.
Right. That one was for, no, I was actually for yearly improvement in the graduation rate though.
Oh.
So right now, our graduation rate, I think we'd all agree that it's not where we want it to be. But I think the original wording was every student will graduate on time. And I didn't, philosophically, I didn't know if I agreed that that's
I'm
what
okay
we
with
should
your
shoot for.
wording. Do you feel like we have some work to do as far as every student graduating prepared for a rewarding career or higher educational opportunities? Kiara's getting close. You ready?
I'm ready. Well, a lot of people, that's not their thing, and it's not. There's other options. They're not ready. They need to take some time for themselves to figure it out, or they're already working.
Besides a career or college, sit on the couch after school for 4 or 5 years and just.
You can go straight to work.
Sounds like they should be cut
A lot,
off from
yeah.
their
A
funding.
lot of people go straight to work.
Living in the basement.
I'm as ready as I'm gonna get.
Okay, so we're okay with all the changes then? Do I have consensus? So do we want to leave this in policy review and make all these changes and then bring it back at our next board meeting to make it a final?
I'm okay with it, putting it in general consent.
Okay.
We can always
It's
pull
just
it out
something I
if
don't
there's
like.
a wording issue.
Okay. So it'll be in general consent then at the next board meeting with all the changes, recommended changes. Moving on to item F2. EL4, is there any recommended changes for EL4? If not, moving on to item E3, EL5. Is there any recommended changes for EL5? Okay, moving on to F4, GP12. Any recommended changes for GP12?
Yeah, I'd like to strike item 1, have it end at $4,800 per year and strike the rest of that sentence as a recommendation. And then I think that we should correct the spelling on item 2 so it says reimbursable out of district travel instead of R of district travel.
Okay. So correct the spelling on number 2, and then a period after 4,800 and delete the rest?
That'd be my recommendation, yeah.
What do the other board members think?
So after you want to say $4,800 per year.
Period.
Period.
No, and I like to keep the R of district.
So this is a big change for the board. This would be reimbursement for 96 meetings potentially. I know what Tony's trying to do. He wants bigger scholarships. Not against that.
Putting in the time. I want to continue to donate my portion towards scholarships. Every board member has their own choice as far as that is concerned. But I don't see any difference as far as a board member being reimbursed for his time.
Out of curiosity, what does, let's throw this out here, what does Othello City Council do? Is it every workshop they get paid for?
Every meeting.
Along with the same thing.
Any other comment? It's a good point.
What's the difference between item 2 and 3? To me, they say the same thing. Just stated twice.
But that doesn't,
I don't think that needs to be in there because district policy for that. Of course, district policies for staff though, so maybe not.
So are you recommending getting rid of
They both say that the board members will be reimbursed for expenses incurred. I'm just not sure what the difference is.
well, is it number 2 specifically talking about trainings or duties, or number 3 could be, what if we had to buy a book for all of us that board?
I don't think they say the same thing, Tony. 2 says that they will have those expenses, or pre-authorized, that travel pre-authorized. It doesn't say it will be reimbursed. It just says the only thing they have to pre-authorize is the reimbursable travel out of district. Yeah. But it doesn't say how it will be reimbursed. So I do think they say two different.
Gotcha. One's pre-auth, that makes more sense now. One's pre-authorization. The other one's reimbursement. It was just a question. I just wasn't sure.
Okay, so on the recommendation is for number one, to have a period after 4,800 per year, and then change the spelling error on number two. Is that, do I get consensus from the board to do that? Okay, we have consensus, so that will also be in consent agenda at the next board meeting. Any other comment? If not, we're moving on to item G1. And we will go into executive session for approximately 30 minutes for the purpose of staff evaluations and,
Could we take a 5-minute recess?
yes, and superintendent contract negotiation. There will be no action taken. 5-minute recess.
I think what you do is you put in the number right now. I can't
Sure. How are you? Very good. Yeah, I'm available in the morning. Let's see. Okay. Do you, yes.
Absolutely.
You see, they're looking at, wait for you to remind
Yeah, I don't believe in losing. I can tell you that right now. That's, yeah, that's not even in my mind or vocabulary right now.
I read enough alone.
Right.
Say, but I'm gonna tell your mom, you're what's going on.
Okay.
So we are out of executive session, going back into item H1, announcements. And I know we don't have any announcements in there, but I do just want to mention to the board, Director Mike Garza and myself are still, we're ready to go for our National School Board Conference in Denver. And so if there's anything that you guys would like for us to bring back, please let us know.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. Any other announcements?
Yes, I have a couple announcements. So one is the PTA announcement that Ludicaga PTA wanted me to extend an invitation to the board. They sponsor a Take Your Family to Breakfast, and on this Thursday, you're welcome to go have breakfast at Ludicaga if you like. You don't have to. That's a good point. The other one is McFarland. I should have mentioned it. I was hoping they would. McFarland Middle School Math is Cool got second place in their division at the competition the other day. And the other one is not an announcement, but a request that I'd like to also go to the policy governance training in San Diego that Tony's going to. Is that all right?
Let me think about that.
Okay.
Of course.
Sign up for that yet, Tony? It's kind of be getting close to the deadline.
She's going to be presenting at that conference.
Who is?
You're ready to get person.
Oh. Are you considering going to that?
I'm going to go. She asked me because it's really about sustainability. I tried to make it sound.
Where's that?
Yeah.
I tried to make it sound.
No, but I think it's good. It's going to be a great conference. I could go. I probably still will, but we'll see.
All right. That was it.
Okay. Thank you. Item H2, Board Assessment of Meeting, and Director Hilmes, you're on.
Date of meeting, 2/13/2017, number of board members, 5. Under 1, general meeting behavior. Number 1, the agenda was well planned and focused on the real work of the board. I think it was commendable. Number 2, the board followed the agenda and did not get sidetracked. Commendable. The board's deliberations and decision-making processes were public. Participation engagement with talent, all participants were dominated. Gave us something good. Number 5, members listened actively, avoiding side conversations. I gave us a critical. Under section 2, governance principles review. Number 1, board actions occur at the policy level rather at the operational level. Yes, we'll continue to improve on that. Number 2, the board reviews policy about each topic before discussing the issue. Yes. In writing additional policy, the board starts with a broad statement as more detailed. That's exactly what we're doing. Before, the board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meeting. 1, you're doing a nice job.
Appreciate it.
Number 5, the board supports the superintendent in reasonable interpretation of its policy. Yes, good. So overall, I give this commendable for this.
Awesome. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Director Simmons, second by Director Mike Garza. We are adjourned.